Again, I'm here to prove your hypothesis wrong. I do not come from a family of academics. My both parents were into trade. Yes, they both did different types of trade. However, I did have an elder brother who, no, is not a professor, but is a very driven person. Is a purpose-driven person. And I will attribute my doing a PhD, having a first class, being a distinction student to him, or largely to him, because he was very much a mentor. So he painted the picture for me, even while I was in secondary school and didn't really understand university. He was already in university and I always wanted to walk in his shoes. So he went to University of Ibadan, and because I saw him go to Ibadan, I was there for his matriculation, and I was like, oh, I want to come to this uni. So I always aspired to go there. And I remember once as well, we were in church, he came home. It was one of those times he came home and I was still in secondary school, like I said, because we have like a 7-year difference between the both of us. So I never met him when he was in secondary school. So he was in university when I was in secondary school. But he told me one day, he was like, Chinwe, I see you getting a PhD and I see you being in an a reputable international organization. That's what he said. And for me, remember, I was just in secondary school. I couldn't really understand it, but I just held on to it. That's it. So I did have a mentor figure who I would say, to be fair, is my invisible advantage because he kept pushing. So no, it's not really my parents, but I would say my eldest brother to start with.
Yeah. No, that's interesting because I was going to ask about who were your mentors growing up.
Yeah.
But then are there other mentors you have other than your brother?
Well, so in terms of who was there, who was the person I could see from my younger days, I would say him. But then as I got into liking academia, I got more mentors, especially those who work in the field. My brother is not an academic, he's an IT person. Okay. But he's this person that strives for excellence, and he will push you to be the best. And by the way, shout out to Chima. That's my brother, and that's the person I'm talking about. I tell everybody about him. But in terms of the mentors that I have now associated myself with as I grow in my career, I do have some from University of Ibadan. Amazing people. Like, again, these are people that just because of how they carry themselves with so much excellence and the way they do their work, they mentored me. There is Dr. Kabiru Salami, who mentored me for my university undergraduate master's days. He's now a professor. Pardon me. So it's Professor Kabiru Salami. There is Professor Funke Fayenwa as well. She's an amazing mentor. She's want to mentor you even beyond academia to, other aspects of life. So these are just examples of the ones that I associated with or have been associated with. But then I got to know them from my undergraduate days. Okay. Now moving into my current life, I do have more mentors because, like I said, as I've grown, I have just, associated with different mentors, and they all just contribute to my career and the progress I make on my career. So my PhD supervisor, for instance, she's been a great mentor. There's Professor Franklin Lisk at Warwick University. And so it's just, so I've started with my brother being, family, but not necessarily being in the field, to then getting mentors in the field.
Oh, that's interesting. Our stories are pretty similar. My own brother, we are 5.
Okay.
And my mom had a gap year where she went back to school. So you can imagine there's 12 years between my brother and myself. He's 12 years older than me. Yeah.
Okay.
Still my mentor to today because some of the one that sort of paved the way and
for you.
Yeah, and so similar stories. In fact, when he was in secondary school, I was probably still now you can imagine, because people enter, when people finish secondary school around 16, it's all these 12 years older than you, probably when you finish secondary school. So you can imagine. Yeah. But there's a lot I learned also from my mother about hard work. Growing up, and I think those values are really important and they stay with me to today. The sheer value of giving your best and then just sort of pushing and all that. So we learn, bits of peace from lots of people.
Yeah.
But so the fun of having my brother as a mentor. And there are a lot of lesson moments that I remember, just like yours. Yours is probably different. But there's sort of correct moments where my brother had to, really correct me, that today. Because I was very stubborn. In fact, my mom felt I should have been a lawyer because I argue with with everybody. My mom with anybody that is ready to argue, I'm always down to argue. And I was arguing with my brother one of these days, and he felt like, no, you need to learn this lesson now. I can't remember that moment, but yeah, that's very interesting. But thumbs up to brothers who have really mentored the young ones. And I'm also a last but like you, so
interesting.
We had that in common. Now, because PhD to me is always not something accidental. It's a huge journey, and it's always important for people to understand the beginning or the starting point, which is usually the sort of family you began. You are born into, and you began the journey from. So take us now to deciding to pursue a PhD. I know you had this, conversation that you probably don't necessarily understand. I mean, of course, how many secondary school students know about what PhD or understand what PhD is all about? So when was that deciding moment, and why did you decide to pursue a PhD?
Okay, so coming from having that vision of working for an international, a reputable international organization. And for me, one person that's, made a huge impact in my thinking about my future as well, although not a mentor, but a role model, is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So I admire her so much. I am very much her disciple, if there's anything like that. And I know she has a PhD. It's the first thing I know, right? The deciding moment for me to do a PhD was when I was doing my youth service, right? That's when, of course, I started to really understand things. Again, remember, there's been this, you should do a PhD. It's where I see you going. That's my brother. As much as he put that in me, that was his opinion of me, okay? There needed to be a time where I desired it myself. And I would say it was when I then went to do my youth service at the University of Ilorin, being amongst academics myself and thinking about Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. I can't remember if that's the time when, of course, she's always done big things. But reading about her life story and knowing, okay, so she did a PhD. I'm like, okay, looks like I want to do a PhD as well, because this is what will put me, or, this is favorable to my path to what I want to do in the future. So I started to think in my mind that, yes, I'll go for a PhD. I wasn't sure what field though, but I knew I wanted to get a PhD as well. So yes, I'll say the deciding moment is going for my youth service, being amongst people in academia, and then getting to know Okonjo-Iweala even a bit more. Was what made me think, okay, yes, at some point, yes, I want to do a PhD.
That's interesting. I have an episode where one of our guests also said Okonjo-Iweala inspired her. And so this woman has inspired a lot of women.
I agree. And she continues to do so. Absolutely. I love her. Like, one of my goals, by the way, is to meet her. I just want to meet her. I want to be in the same. Yeah, I'd written that on Instagram. I literally have it as one of my highlights on Instagram, that